Today we're going to pack some wheel bearings. We're prepping this car for this year, and I figured now would be a good time to show you guys how I do my wheel bearings. There's two different ways you can do these if you're not doing an oil bath hub. You can either grease it manually, like you can just run a full grease, or you can run like a DRP style grease. The DRP is the syringe, and that's a little different style than what we're doing today. Today we're just going to do a traditional grease. I like to use the Redline grease. It's really tacky. It's really good for high temp. I've never had an issue with it. I've used it forever. So basically, like I say, this is just a traditional packing, not using DRP and just regular grease. So pretty much any car that you've ever ran, this kind of style works on it. You're first going to start off with a liberal amount of grease. Start packing with the open backside against the palm of your hand, and it will squeeze that grease right into that gap. Every time you reach down there, you're going to take just a little bit more on a swipe, and you're going to press it through with the palm of your hand. Take a little bit, press it through. Press it through. And what you're going to see happen is, as you do this, you'll see the grease squirt out between those two bearings. See that? That is perfect. Rotate the bearing in your hand just a little bit. Don't spin it. Just rotate it in your hand and move on to the next gap. On to the next gap. You can see now all the grease has been pushed through all the bearing gaps. This side's got quite a bit of grease on it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to spin that bearing, and as I'm spinning it, I'm going to let my fingers roll over the outside of it and basically just make sure everything is well coated with grease. All this extra grease in here will never be cycled through the bearing. If it's pushed out, it's never going to use it. So next up, clean as much grease out of this bearing as you can. Basically, all you're trying to do is create a nice film throughout that entire bearing. Anything extra, like I say, that's been pushed out, it's never going to get worked back in there. Let's use this 5-on-5 hub, for example. This is just an easy way to see that there's just too much grease. You can see down here where this shoulder is, where if it was a front hub, it would have a cap that would bolt in there. That is just packed full of grease. In fact, you can see on the drive flange itself, it's got a bunch of grease on it. Grease may not be that heavy, but it just doesn't need to be there. That's all just excess. I've read where they say that extra grease is just an insulator, it keeps the heat in. I don't know. It's just, to me, that's just too much. Just like the DRP system, when they put it in, they go between every other bearing. It's just enough to give these bearings a good coat. Because, like I say, there's nothing to pump. Like typically an oil pan will have a pump to push the oil back where it wants it. This doesn't have this. This just basically uses the bearing, the grease that's on that roller, and anything else is just excess. This bearing is now ready to go in. There are some other styles of ways of packing these. I know they have presses that push it through. They have different, other directions you can go with that. I personally like to do it by hand because I'm visually seeing that grease come through that race. I know that there's no air gaps. I know that it's thoroughly greased. I cleaned it myself. I know it's clean. This bearing is not going to have any issues. And then the next thing is, how long do you go before you pack the bearings? I know guys that just pack them once a year and they've gotten away with it. Personally, I'm like a 3 to 5 race kind of guy. 1,000 laps, 1,200 laps. I like to repack my bearings. If you've got oil bath hubs, that's different. You might do it every race. The DRP grease, again, they're saying maybe 1,000 laps on them. If you do it good like this and you maintain your car, you don't cook the brakes. If you get your brakes glowing, I always look at my bearings. When you put that much heat into a rotor and into a hub, it's just good just to kind of take them apart and look at them. But it's very simple to do, and now I have peace of mind knowing that this bearing is going to live up to its full potential. It's never going to fail like this. This is a good way to do it.